Good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this October 3rd version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon on the EOA network. How are you,
Roku,
man?
what is the EOA network?
The EOA network is, so when we stream like this, it goes simultaneously on Facebook, YouTube, the web, and Roku. And then after the fact, it ends up on all of those platforms archived and then on Spotify and
iTunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, how are you?
Second Monday.
Are you feeling it?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't feel good like early in the week, and then I felt better, and then Saturday morning I woke up and felt like crap. I'm just kind of trying to get over it.
You kind of came back.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
But I feel a little better today.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, you want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
I guess we'll talk about LHS football first. We lost big on the road to Baker, 36-6. I was at the game. There was nothing good. I didn't see anything good. One of the things that, and I'm going to put this out there for everybody, and people can comment. I don't care. The thing that we're lacking, one of the things that we're lacking, to me, that was really noticeable on Friday night, is the bench and the coaches. Nobody was fired up. I was right there. Yeah. I mean, I was right there on the sidelines, and there was no like passion. Like I didn't see any like come on, and maybe it was there but not being shown.
Yeah.
But in a game like that on the road, for me, and I've played on the road in Baker before. And back then it wasn't the same. It would be more like playing on the road in Pendleton for us. But that's where that has to come out. You know what I mean? There has to be that desire. And I'm not saying that players and coaches didn't want it. I just didn't see any. You know what I mean? The fans were more pumped up than the players, and that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
And the coaches. You know what I mean? Like there was just it wasn't there. You know, and I don't know if it's this mix of coaches along with this mix of players, but that's something that's got to be there in my eyes. Like I said, 36-6, tough game to lose to Baker. I mean, I think we lost to them the COVID year, which I think it was 2020, the year after the state championship. We lost to them at home.
Yeah,
and it was a close game, and since then we haven't lost them. So I don't know. This team this year, we got to find it in the next week or two, or we're in trouble. Like it's not going to make the playoffs if things keep going the way they're going.
Yeah.
EOU met. Oh wait, let's talk about LeGrand boys soccer. They tied with defending state champ Ontario last week, which is pretty cool. I'm getting through the senior interviews with them right now. I had 3 of them in yesterday. So I'm doing them in kind of like stages by the week. I got the cheerleaders done, the football players done. I'm working on men's and women's soccer this week, and then next week I'll do volleyball and cross country, and that'll be all the fall. I think there's like 47 fall athletes or something like that total, and that's if people want to check those interviews out, they come out about 2 or 3 of them a week on the network, and then we'll put together a little video at the end. But each one of those take probably, I don't know, an hour an interview. You know what I mean? Like when it all comes down to it, when it comes down to the scheduling it, getting the kid in here, talking with them, getting them out, getting it put into the editing software, putting the title on and all that, it probably takes a little more than an hour an interview. So by the end of just fall, there'll be a good 50 hours of work to put out. About, I don't know, I'd say a quarter of that in time. So what would that be, about 10 hours, 12 hours of interviews total?
Yeah.
Which isn't bad. I mean,
how cool is that though? I mean,
fun.
Because you get to connect with all those kids on a level.
Yeah, and a lot of them, like if they end up going to EOU, or even if they don't go to EOU, if they stick with sports in college,
right,
I have a connection with them. So like I can call them up or message them and be like, hey, you're, at this school now, be on my show. Come on my show. Let's see how you're doing, where you're at.
Yeah.
So it's good for that. EOU men's soccer tied on Friday night with OIT, and then they lost on Saturday to Southern 3-0. Women's soccer tied Friday night with OIT as well, and lost on Saturday 1-0 to Southern, and that was their first loss of the year for the women. They've had like 4 or 5 ties. That's the one other thing I like. Soccer tying, to me, like, what's the point? But in soccer and hockey, you get to do it. In football too sometimes.
Yeah.
But at least you play, like, soccer, like, a tie's a tie. You know what I mean? Like,
game just ends.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it was George Brett that said, if losing's like kissing your sister, a tie is like kissing your grandma without her teeth in. George Brett, baseball player, said that. It's a great quote. Yeah. EOU football got their first win of the year on Saturday at Community Stadium. They beat Arizona Christian 34-0. It was a game filled with good for the Mounties. The offense was clicking. The defense swarmed the ball. I watched it. I didn't go because I felt crummy on Saturday, but I watched it at home, and it was the best game we played so far. I mean, granted, the competition wasn't at the level that we've seen.
Right.
But Arizona Christian was 2-2 coming into the game. LHS grad Blaine Shaw was named Frontier Conference Defensive Player of the Week. He had a heck of a game.
Cool.
And just he recently moved positions. They moved him from safety in, and they put him in the box, which means that he's going to be more of a run stopper now. Safety, you're the last line of defense. When they move you, I think they moved him to Sam, linebacker, and that puts him in the box, so he just gets a lot more action.
Yeah.
And he's responded well. And I mean, obviously, if he got Frontier Conference Defensive Player of the Week, he did something right.
Yeah.
With this football team, though, it's funny. Somebody made a comment on my post about the team winning, and they were like, they won't win a league game, and so I had to respond, of course. So I just said, this was a league game first off, and they won it. And then the other thing is we got to give this new offensive coordinator and this new quarterback just a little bit of time, because they're showing flashes of brilliance. They really are. And this could come together and be something really good in the next, like half season and then into next year. And I'm kind of excited about it.
Good.
EOU volleyball went on the road and swept number 5 in the country, Corbin. We're number 4. And then we turned around and swept Bushnell. The volleyball team's 17-1. They have 14 sweeps, which means in 14 of those 17 wins, they haven't lost a match. So 3-0, 14 times. And then they also have only lost 6 sets all year, which is crazy. In 18 games, 6 sets. That's like, and 3 of them came in their one loss to Northwest, which they shouldn't have lost. I mean, they're a way better team. You know what I mean? It was just one of those days, Yeah. Alexis McMurtry was CCC Setter of the Week for the 2nd consecutive week and the 3rd time overall. You won't see EOU get a lot of defensive player of the week or hitter of the week, just for the simple fact that they're so deep. They got so many girls that play that at a really high level that they share, the kills, they share the digs. And teams like Corbin, where they have really one girl, Riley Troutman, that's she was the national attacker of the year last year. She's going to get 24 kills a game or 20 kills a game. She's going to get attacker of the week like 6 times this year.
Right. You
might see one EOU girl get it this year, which, I mean, it's fine. The only thing that matters is that championship that hangs in the rafters at the end of the year, really. And last year we got them both, the regular season and the tournament. So hopefully we get the same result this year. It's a good team, man. Finally, for EOU, the men's cross country team won the Charles Bowles invite for the first time ever. I got a text from Ben Welch. He was pumped about it. And the cool thing is they had, like, I think their top finisher finished 9th, which is really good considering you're talking about D1 schools, D2, D3, and NAIA, and open. So, like, you can not be affiliated and you can run. There's guys running that graduated from EOU, or you know what I mean? So it's a big. There's a lot of competition there, and for EOU to come out on top, huge. That got them team of the week in the CCC, which is
Cool.
awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, like LeGrand football hosts Madras right here on Friday night, Community Stadium in LeGrand. It'll be right here on the EOA network at 7, and then Pendleton hosts Crook County over the hill, and that'll also be right here on the EOA Live network at 7. So we'll have dual games going at 7 p.m. on Friday night. And then the last thing for EOU, all their sports are on the road this weekend. There's nothing at home. There's soccer's on the road, volleyball is on the road, football is on the road. So I'll give you guys those schedules on Thursday. I'll talk about where they're going to be and all that. And yeah, this morning sports report is brought to you by Happy Habit. Go check out what Joe's got going on. They just got advent calendars in. If you know what those are, advent calendars. They're a big thing in the hobby world, apparently.
Really?
Yeah. Every year, Joe makes a post about advent calendars. So they have the coolest Legos. They're a Traxxas certified dealer. They have you walk in there and these RC cars look like really like miniature new cars or, 70s trucks or muscle cars, and they go 70 miles an hour, which is crazy. Yeah. Hobby Habit in LeGrand, 411 First Street, just for the fun of it.
Yeah. I did go in there and look at them not too long ago.
Yeah.
Just go in and look at the cars.
Had you been in there before?
Yeah, occasionally.
It's way different now.
Oh, yeah.
In there. It's all updated, all the dusty old,
inventory.
Yeah, all the old inventory's gone. Just got all new. They have tons of board games. Well, you know what the cool thing is you go to my sister's house and they have a room.
It's just board games?
Yeah. Pretty much.
It's kind of like they try them out, try out what works.
If we have a family event, there's board games there usually. The newest board games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Do you like playing board games?
I like winning.
You like winning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like losing. I like competition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I like board games.
Oh, good. All right. Well, let's look outside. It's a little rainy. Let's see. The weather is supposed to be 61 today and rainy.
All day.
Yeah. And then tomorrow, 67, Thursday, 60, 72, 74. So it looks like it's going to get nicer
by the weekend.
Which is good. So this Friday, this Saturday, Marianne Meisner was with us last week and talked to us, or this week, it's Thursday. She was here with us on Tuesday and talked about the Harvest Festival.
Today's Tuesday.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. So it was Thursday.
Yeah.
Thank you. Talked to us about the Harvest Festival this Saturday at 11 o'clock downtown LeGrand. We talked about that quite a bit. So anyhow.
Yeah, they're going to shut down a bunch of streets. I was going to say something during that show. One of the things that I've never thought made sense is why we shut, and there might be something logistically about it, or because it's right there at Max Square. But why do we shut down 4th Street on the other side of Adams when that's where all the parking is? Why do we block that off? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Shut down Adams on.
If you go across Adams on 4th, where like Mamacita's is in the library.
Right.
Why do we block that off?
Are you talking
when
about
that's where all the parking is?
Are you talking about like for
like events, for everything? I mean, pretty much any. Why do we use that for the market? Why not put the market down a different road and leave that open? Because there's got to be 25 or 30 parking spots right there.
Right. But I guess that is the only place, and it's the farmers market that uses that
It gets shut down for everything, though. It gets shut down when there's a parade. It gets shut, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't have a problem. I mean, to answer the question specifically, if there's a big event in Max Square, that is the only overflow area. So, and having events in Max Square is the primary place to have downtown events.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's,
they're shutting down all of Adams for this. They're shutting down a bunch of Adams.
Yeah.
They could have not shut down that little corner right there and just pushed it down further.
Well, Adams. But I mean, farmers market, they're functioning that particular morning also. Has nothing to do with,
Go the other way.
yeah,
Go down Adams instead of going down that little side street.
with the event.
With Farmers Market. Why
so
not?
go down Main Street.
Yeah, why not?
Block
I
Adams?
mean, we don't have Main Street. It's Adams. Yeah.
Go down Adams.
Why not?
Well, I guess you're saying that blocking Adams is better than blocking 4th Street?
I'm saying that we need parking.
Yeah, I guess I mean, frankly, and I've been on the parking studies. I was in downtown LeGrand Main Street for a long time. People who complain about parking have never spent very much time in a city. I mean, in Eastern Oregon, and Gary's here, I'll have him weigh in on this here a little bit. But in LeGrand, if you can't park in front of the store that you want to go to, then that's a problem for you.
Yeah.
And personally, that's just being spoiled. I mean, that's not realistic. So I mean, I understand why people feel that way. I feel that way too. I mean, if I'm going to a restaurant and I have to park a half a block down the street and make my way to it, but that's just part of being.
I think that's part of living in a small town.
Well, right. But even if let's say somebody said, well, we need a parking structure. Well, that parking structure is going to be in one location. Yeah, parking is going to be increased. People are still going to have to walk to wherever it is that they want to go, So, but yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. So let's see. So where were we? I guess we're about ready. We'll bring Gary on. Gary Bell, police chief of LeGrand, is going to be with us here in just a minute, and that'll be a good place to start the conversation. We'll see in just a second. All right, we're back. How are you, Gary?
Fantastic.
Good.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, good. Glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
So do we have a parking problem?
Well, that depends on who you talk to.
That is it. Yeah, right. Who you ask. That is.
And it ebbs and flows. It kind of depends. We've recently, the last few years, moved the Celebrate LeGrand event out to Riverside Park, and when that happens, or when we do the Easter egg hunt, there's a parking problem out there.
Right.
But, your average, day at the park, there's no issue. But specifically downtown, I, like you, have been around for a few days, and I've been party to many discussions and listened to a lot of the different discussions. And, there really isn't a durable solution, to, what I think some perceive as a parking problem.
Yeah.
Because there has been discussion about creating parking structures and things like that, but it doesn't alleviate like you say, that would create a lot of parking spaces for, that particular block or 2-block area. But, people may not want to walk the 3 or 4 blocks, to get to the restaurant or shop that they're looking to visit. There's many times that, when you're downtown LeGrand, you can park right in front of or within, a few hundred feet of where you're looking to go. But there are times like when we have, and I don't know, I think it's fantastic. We have more events downtown now. I think that, those behind those and the effort to bring people into our downtown, fantastic, great events. But there is congestion, when that happens. But if you compare that to, like you suggested, what some communities and larger urban areas experience, there's no comparison. The question that came up about 4th Street between Adams and Jefferson, and that is primarily farmers market. And all of the street closures associated with parades or events, they all come through my desk. So I get to see all of those. And what I can tell you is there's never a rubber stamp on any of those, because we try to be very thoughtful in terms of, the balance and the needs of the community. We certainly want to provide for those that are organizing the event or the parade what they're asking, but we also have to think about other things, and that is, the travel through the community, from one side of town to the other. And, not the least of which is, something that we're always considering, and that is, for first responder access. That's why we very rarely, I don't know if you've noticed, we very rarely close 4th and Adams, the intersection, because that is a primary arterial access from, the south side of town, the southwest part of town to the northwest part of town. Is it
part of the truck route too?
There's no truck route in LeGrand anymore.
I was going to ask you.
The highway goes right downtown.
Yeah,
That's
explain that change, because I was going to talk about that.
A number of years ago, many of our community members will remember that we had a designated truck route which deviated off of Adams Avenue. Is actually Highway 30. It's a state highway. So Adams Avenue is actually owned by the state of Oregon.
And it still is maintained by the state.
Everything except the crosswalks.
Okay.
The city of LeGrand has the crosswalks because when those many years ago in the 80s, when it was repaved with concrete, the city at the time wanted the stamped cement to make it look like brick. And that was outside of the scope of the work that ODOT was going to do. So that's owned, and the required maintenance is on the city to do that. But the street lights, traffic signals, and all of that, that's all ODOT maintained. So anytime someone requests, whether it's a parade or a street closure, it first comes to the city, and I look at it to see if it meets our specifications for a closure. And if Adams Avenue is involved, it also has to go to ODOT. And they have to approve that as well. But the truck route deviated off of Adams Avenue, Highway 30 at Adams and Hemlock. So right by the LeGrand Chevron there, across Globe Furniture.
Right.
Went over to Jefferson Street, and then it came back on 3rd Street. But, over time, that changed. And I can't remember exactly when it was, a pretty long time ago. But now it's just Adams Avenue, but it's technically not designated as a truck route. And
it seems like ODOT is the one that changed that. Is that? I mean, I don't
know for sure. Yeah.
But so that is. I mean, it's funny because the other day, not funny, but there was an incident. I think I'm not quite sure exactly why, but there was a whole bunch of truck traffic that was taking the first exit into LeGrand. And I mean, there was just a ton of trucks.
Most recently there was a multiple vehicle collision over on I-84 between here and Pendleton. Yeah. And the truth is we're coming up on the winter season. And, anytime we have freeway closures, it's not uncommon to see an influx of all vehicles. But, what we really notice are the commercial vehicles. And sometimes, with everybody has GPS. If they're not familiar with the community, they'll get off the freeway
at the first exit.
Exactly. And come down through Gangloff Park. And then they're into our downtown. And it's if people aren't familiar with it, it can be some tight maneuvering with a commercial motor vehicle.
Which is good. I mean, from the standpoint of downtown life and economic development and so on and so, we want them to come through downtown,
Sure.
So, I love seeing them try to take the right-hand turn off of Island on Adams.
I don't like seeing it.
I mean, like the evil part of me.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I had a CDL
So
and I tried that one time. Yeah.
Yeah.
You come up to that intersection and
Yeah.
try and take a right hand turn there, and like, oh, that's not going to work.
Yeah, it's quite a clue when you look you look on the northwest corner, northeast corner there, right by Soda Blitz,
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
a giant steel sleeve around the power pole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and it's all
yeah.
scraped
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was asked about this, I don't know, a year or so ago, because we had an event where a commercial truck and trailer cut the corner, got stuck there. And then, of course, you find out very quickly how much traffic flow goes through that intersection because it all backs up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, here's the thing. I have sat there and watched experienced drivers who are familiar with the area, but quite frankly, that intersection isn't necessarily any different than a lot of intersections that a commercial driver might, come across.
Yeah.
And if that's done right, you can really see the experience and the
Right.
quality of the driver, because they move over and, oftentimes they're in both of those lanes,
Right.
but they need that,
Right.
in order to navigate
Right. You're right.
the turn, effectively. But if a commercial truck and trailer comes up and they're in that
Right-hand
outside lane, that right-hand lane, and they try to, it's just not going to happen.
lane. The math does not work.
No, yeah.
While we're on the jam and traffic subject, and I'm sure you guys get a lot of calls about this, and I'm only asking this because I've seen it on social media a lot lately. Again, what about the railroad crossings?
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Them blocking down, you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
block them for long periods of time. I mean, I've sat there walking for over a half an hour, and you see all this stuff. Hey,
Right.
they're allowed to block it for this amount of time or that amount of time. Like, how many calls do you guys get?
Well, we used to get more, but here's the truth is the city doesn't have any jurisdiction to, tell the railroad, Union Pacific, how long they can have a train parked. And it's my understanding that there was a practice where the trains would go through town and pass the depot and then do driver exchanges west of town.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so during that period of time when, the train was stationary, it was actually west of the crossings. For one reason or the other, to which I do not know why, that practice, it sounds like, has changed.
It
So that's, I think, what people experience, and I've experienced it too. It can be very aggravating. But what I have done personally, my family members and I advise people to do is sometimes during the day, just plan your route to use the 2nd Street Viaduct or the Island Avenue underpass. And that way you just kind of avoid that.
That's a question that's actually come up on social media too. Is like, what about first responders?
Yeah.
If there's there's an emergency at, let's say on Jackson. Right.
Yeah.
That's a long ways to go for an ambulance or a cop to go all the way to 2nd Street
Yeah.
or all the way down. You know what I mean? That's out of the way.
Absolutely. So first, let's talk about ambulances. So our ALS ambulances come out of the fire department, which is at Cove, and
so they can automatically.
Right. And so here's the thing. Some people, it's not through ignorance or anything like that. It's just people, I think, oftentimes just don't necessarily pay attention because they don't have a need to. But that the location that we placed the fire department those many years ago, that we built the new fire department, that wasn't by accident. It's right next to the Island Avenue underpass, which means that provides for unrestricted access to both the north and the south sides of town. Now, thinking about local law enforcement, the police department is up on the hill, but at any given time, the police department or the police officers, unlike fire and ambulance, we don't wait at the station for calls for service.
Yeah.
So we are typically, out moving around. Now, there are times where at the station, because the officers have reports to write, or maybe they've just booked a person into jail,
Shift change.
whatever it might be. So there are times that the response is from the station. But if you looked in because we provide 24-hour service, if you looked at a 24-hour period, it's but a fraction of the time that all of our police first responders are in the station versus out in the field somewhere. So their response is from wherever they happen to be.
Right.
Now, our practice, and has been for a very, very long time, is we have, irregardless of the number of officers we have on duty, we have at least one officer assigned to both what we call the North District and one officer assigned to the South District. So they have that responsibility. So they know who, if a call comes in that district, and the districts are divided by the railroad tracks, through town. So north is north of the railroad tracks and south is south of the railroad tracks. So that helps some too. But going back to the 2nd Street Viaduct and the Island Avenue underpass, we oftentimes, it's kind of interesting, some people aren't aware, but for quite a number of years, we had a map in our dispatch center that at each of the railroad crossings had a light. And so each one of those were activated by a phone line. And if there was a train at that crossing, the dispatcher could see that light was lit. And so we did that for a very long time, but then we have gone away from that. And the reason is because our response processes or protocols, really, it doesn't factor in, because oftentimes, you have the 911 dispatcher or dispatchers, one of them is on the phone, with the emergency, the other one's running the radios, communicating with first responders. The first responders, they just need the information, whatever that may be, as quick as they can get it. And they plan their response. They don't even want to take a chance. So unless they're right next to a railroad crossing where they can visually see it, they typically, based upon where they're at geographically within the community, will just aim for the underpass or the 2nd Street overpass.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And you think about it, you have, Depot, Fur, Greenwood, Cherry, and then Willow. If the officers are right there, they can see whether a train is there or not. Yeah. So what we found was the board was it was kind of unnecessary. But yeah, I would offer that it really doesn't delay our response.
Good. That's what I wanted. I wanted people to be able to hear that.
Yeah. When you look at, and I often do, I look at what's going on in other municipalities, in the public safety world. And if you look at our emergency response times, honestly, even our non-emergency response times, it's incredible. And if you don't have any other experience or having lived in other communities to know what the difference is, it may not be that meaningful to you, but we still have a live human being wearing a police uniform show up, to criminal mischief calls, if your bicycle's stolen, but there's communities in our very own state where if your car's stolen, you're not even going to get a police officer to show up.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. I lived in a different town.
Yeah.
And my oldest kid was having a febrile seizure. We had no idea. What I mean? Like just high temperature.
Right.
And so, of course, call 911, call 911, call 911. After the 5th time of not getting an answer, we just got in the car. Like, no, I guarantee you that wouldn't happen here. Like,
no and way. That's really disheartening. You think about that. You had that lived experience, but if you think about, it'd be interesting to know how many people it's like not very many people call or activate 911.
Right.
Some people have never done it in their entire life.
Right. Yeah.
And if they have, it's probably very infrequent. And so when you do, you need help.
Yeah. And
to have the phone ring busy, or it's like, that's very disheartening and unnerving, because people, they need help, whether it's police or fire or EMS, whatever that might be. But, so our response times are great. Probably the single, most frequent thing that would slow our response times is just call volume. If we have multiple, calls or emergencies at the same time, and that does happen. But then anytime we do that, and it's no different than, any other public safety response, and that is we prioritize.
I would imagine when you have a visible incident that you get multiple calls about the same thing.
Correct. Yeah.
And so then that floods it just on that one incident.
Yeah.
And then if something else comes in,
Yeah.
another incident comes in.
That's correct. And see, what happens is that doesn't impact. I was about to say something, and I want to correct myself, because I was going to say that doesn't really impact our first responders as much as it does our dispatchers. But our dispatchers are actually part of our first responder network.
Absolutely.
But our field units, whether it's fire, EMS, or police, when we have, and you know what happens? Probably one of the most frequent types of events that causes that is weather events.
Oh,
So we've had a number in the last few years, a number of like windstorms.
Yeah.
Remember when we had
down.
the wild tornado that touched down on the north side of town here,
Yeah.
a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
Those things, a lot of people, there's power lines down, people's electricity are out, maybe something has fallen on their house or their car, and our 911 center lights up, and the phones are just constant. But it doesn't necessarily, it impacts the dispatchers
Right.
significantly.
Right.
But, in terms of, any necessary police, fire,
Yeah, because the dispatchers are weeding through all those.
That's
calls.
correct. Yeah. Oftentimes, and some people, if you're not familiar, and it doesn't happen that often, if you call into 911 dispatch, they're very businesslike. A lot of times you get on the phone, and it's like, hey, how are you doing? It's like, there's none of that, because, they oftentimes what you're going to hear is, what is your emergency?
That is.
And it's not,
when I've called the 911, what's your emergency?
Right.
It's like,
yeah,
right
because they want to know, do you have a police issue?
Yeah.
Do you have, because what they're doing at the same time that they're talking to you is they're foresighting, what do I need to do? Who do I need to send?
Yeah.
And that then triggers, like, which button do I push?
Yeah.
But it's not because they lack empathy, or it's all business, because it's about efficiency.
Right.
There's no time for the cordialities, and then they don't want to. There are times where the emergency will cause, maybe the dispatcher is providing first aid instructions, or maybe they want to keep the person on the phone because that's the safest way, to facilitate a response and coordinate with whoever the first responders are. But there are other times where they get what they need as quick as they can, and then they're looking to disconnect because they don't want to keep those phone lines tied up. And so those events where, like I was example of a weather event where they're getting 100 calls, in 5 minutes, they're not looking to stake, because it's like, what's your emergency? And when they say, hey, I've got a tree, that's like, okay, we've got the information, because we already know.
Right.
And there's nothing more that we can really do, because we got all of the resources already coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if somebody has a heart attack at that same time, you want those phone lines to be open.
That's exactly
right. So you can be like, oh, okay, we got to get somebody,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
forward.
Because that's, anytime we have some, critical event, and maybe it's an event that we have a lot of resources tied up, and maybe they're going to be involved in that, maybe it's the response or a subsequent investigation, whatever it may be. Sometimes what is forgotten is that all of the day-to-day stuff continues to happen.
Right.
Just like you said, it's like, people don't necessarily control when, they have a loved one who is, showing signs that they're, having a stroke.
Right.
So those things happen irregardless of the fact that, hey, we've got a critical event, multiple car collision, whatever it may be. So, the dispatchers, they're hopping, and very busy a lot of times. And now there are moments where it's quiet, but it's the nature of the job. They don't know when that's going to change.
Yeah.
And it could be at any moment.
That I can't, you and I were talking about us personally, and when we go home and unplug and I can't imagine, how important it is for them to be able to disconnect. And I did we did an interview of the crane operator from Grand Round Hospital that's been on that crane, and that's a cool interview that's coming out here just the next couple of days.
Great.
And he talked about how mentally taxing that is, because when somebody's life is in jeopardy if you make the wrong move, and I'm sure that the dispatch operators kind of feel that same thing. I mean, that same way, same stress. Yeah.
I can't champion those folks enough, and they oftentimes are really kind of what I consider forgotten heroes. They're kind of behind the scenes. People don't see them. You have your firefighters and your police officers and your medics. They show up and people get to have, human being, interaction with them. But the dispatchers they're literally, behind the scenes.
Right.
But what they do is no less critical by any measure than, any of our field responders. And they feel all of the same things, Brent, and we've learned and adapted over time. And I feel like, as best we know, we're providing, wellness and support for them that in ways that we never have before. We, in the last few years have initiated what we call a peer support program, within the police department. And that, of course, includes the dispatchers. Matter of fact, we have some dispatchers that act as peer mentors, in that program. We also do what we call critical incident stress debriefs. And we held one of those after that crane incident.
Yeah.
And, it's just meaningful. And we have a number of layers of programs within our overall, wellness approach for our folks. But a lot of the struggle for the dispatchers is, so they get the call, they hear all of these details, they hear, the field units responding, and then oftentimes then there's a disconnect. Yeah. And so it's like,
they don't really know.
If I throw out an analogy, however applicable it may or may not be, if you're reading a book and it's like really got you because of whatever, is happening at that moment. And then you turn the page and there's nothing.
Right.
There's no closure. And that can be difficult and traumatizing for dispatchers as it is, because they don't know what happened.
Right. And
so we work really hard at then bringing them full circle so that they know what the outcomes were. And that I think that's very cathartic for them.
Are there some that don't want to know though?
Typically I don't come across that. No. They have the same first responder blood coursing through their veins that are your police, fire, and medics do. And by the sheer nature of the work that they've chosen to be involved in, there's that trigger of curiosity, and you got some tough folks in there, it's not an easy job, but it's the reward is immeasurable if it's right for you.
The helplessness is what would get me. I mean, if I were in that call center, because what you might hear on the line, you're getting people there, you're advising them, you're coaxing them, and
right.
But physically you can't be there to change the situation in some manner.
In their training, and what they do oftentimes, because I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But consider it from this perspective. Just them being on the phone, someone is in crisis.
Right.
Or let's just say here, not too long ago, we had a young family that they were expecting a baby, and it came earlier than
right.
what, and so they're on the phone with a 911 dispatcher, and it's that calming voice, that reassurance that somebody is there. It's like, think about it in times if, anytime maybe, either of you or listeners maybe you've been injured or somehow or the other traumatized, and you have a friend or a loved one, family member that's there. Maybe they're just holding your head or reassuring you that it's going to be okay, help's on the way, and that's kind of that role that your 911 dispatcher plays through the phone line. And oftentimes, if you talk to people following some type of a critical event, they will tell you that voice on the phone, that reassurance. I knew that the situation was going to get better,
Yeah.
because help was on the way, and there's that reassurance. So I think there is hope,
Right.
and that's part of what they're helping in every way that they can at the
Yeah.
moment, and they're the best we got until we get that team of medics or the fire department or police there to take it over from the site.
Do you see any technology that is coming down the pipe that might help this? Is there anything out there? Certainly the location information that now is a part of all of that stuff.
Right.
Is there other stuff that is going to help that's coming that you're seeing? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I watched this movie this one time where we could actually foretell when crimes are going to happen.
Right, that'd be interesting.
What was that, Minority Report? Or
Yeah,
something?
it was. Yeah, that was very fascinating.
That's probably going to happen
Must have
after
got a
my
chip.
career.
Yeah.
Ready
No,
for
specific to dispatch, but look, you guys know, we all know,
Right.
technology, I think, has moved, and it continues with AI
Uh-huh.
at a rate that it's really kind of hard to keep up with, quite
Mhm.
frankly. And when I say hard to keep up with, it's not just the learning curve of us as users of the technology, but implementing it, maintaining it, it's all challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can tell you is that our 911 dispatch center today versus when I started in my career, very different based upon technology. Because back in the day, somebody called 911, and if we had a disconnect, we had no idea where that came from if they didn't tell us what their address was. Now we have that. And we have the ability to, in certain emergencies, we can, even if people don't want us to know, we have the ability to do some triangulation with cellular signals.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect, so I think that maybe that's a technology that will continue to maybe be enhanced. But our ability to respond and get the service to people where it's needed is better today because of technology than it was 15, 20, 30 years ago. Another tool that we have at our disposal is early in my career. When I say my career, I know that it was a long time ago, right? But not really when you think about our history,
right?
But everything was more or less handwritten, paper form. We had file cabinets. Now we have, we call it a CAD system, but it's computer aided dispatch, and it's here a few years ago. It was about 3 or 4 years ago, right after I became chief, we updated our CAD software and our record management software. And that is the latest technology available. And it's really great because we can punch in even a sounds like name or a partial name. So when dispatch, you call dispatch and they say, what's your emergency? What's your name? They'll put that in their computer, and a bunch of information about that person will pop up. Their address, phone number, history of calls. So like if it's a medical call, they will see, the frequency of maybe the ambulance being dispatched there. So it's a lot of information very quickly at their fingertips that enhances their ability to, get the units there and potentially get these folks the help that they need, as quick as we can.
Awesome. So now I thought the cellular technology was coming where that it automatically would give you a geo number where they are at. Is that
no,
there?
That's in place.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is if we have someone that is missing, someone
got it.
Yeah. So, oftentimes, like you've seen in the media this last year, unfortunately, quite a number of times where the sheriff's office search and rescue unit has been out in the field operating, helping people.
Yep.
Well, those calls all start in the dispatch center.
Right.
And then they, of course, trigger the appropriate, first responder organization. But oftentimes family members, loved ones, report that, hey, so-and-so, is overdue.
Right.
The last we knew that they were going to be going and doing, whatever, maybe outdoor activity. What I'm talking about is the ability to ping those, like if someone has a mobile device.
Right.
The difference is like if you're on your mobile device and call into dispatch and you're on the freeway or wherever you might be, they can see your location based upon that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, this is an interesting question. So let's say I drive over to Hermiston. There's an incident over there, and I call 911.
Right.
It's going to connect me to the 911 center in Hermiston.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So but let's say that I'm in Hermiston and I'm talking to a loved one of my kids. Dad, I'm having an issue here in Cove. Can you call 911? Okay.
Right.
That's a little more complicated.
Right. But so we have protocols for that.
Okay.
Though. So what happens is, and there are times because our phone system is set up, and you're challenging my technological know-how here. Okay. But that's fine.
It's good for you.
Yeah, good for me, right? Pretty early in the morning. I should have accepted that cup of coffee. No, so there are times where, and it seems like it's triggered more frequently when the calls come from the freeway because of the geographic location of the caller.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it will end up in the wrong 911 dispatch center.
Mm-hmm.
But we and the other, they're called PSAPs, public safety answering points. That's our 911 centers in the state of Oregon. Maybe it ends up in the wrong one, but we all have protocols. It's like the dispatcher will quickly identify that, okay, the emergency is actually in Umatilla County, or the emergency is actually in Baker County. Well, they can transfer that call to the whatever. And we do that regularly with, because Oregon State Police has their own dispatch center. So we get, as the 911 dispatch center for Union County, if somebody calls about some kind of an emergency on the interstate, well, that's the primary jurisdiction of the Oregon State Police. Well, but the 911 call will come into our dispatch center, but they very quickly will transfer that to the OSP dispatch, the regional dispatch center. And so to the caller, oftentimes it's so seamless that they don't even know.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a hitch in the get along. And it's like, oh, your emergency is going to go unanswered. No,
right. But it takes clearly some knowledge of, so let's say that an incident happens on a highway,
right?
But Highway 30 runs right down the middle of LeGrand. Okay.
Correct.
So if there's an incident that happens within the LeGrand city limits, you're going to take that. But let's say it's at Flying J.
Right.
Then probably Sheriff's Department and OSP is going to respond to that, right? Or
that's correct. So, but the software that I was telling you about, our CAD system, the dispatcher gets the call.
Yeah.
And immediately the location populates.
Yeah.
And right there's we have right in the screen, right in front of them. Actually, they have like 4 or 5 screens in front of them.
Yeah.
But one of the screens, there's a place that it doesn't matter whether it's fire or EMS, law enforcement, it populates based upon where that is geographically, who the primary jurisdictional authority is. So it will say, if that call that you're speaking of was on Adams Avenue in front of Les Schwab, it's going to say LeGrand Fire Department, LeGrand Police Department, on and on. But out at the Flying J, it will say Union County Sheriff's Office.
Right.
So the dispatcher doesn't have to, have this cognitive process. Just like, okay, where is this?
Where's this at?
Even a really new dispatcher, or maybe someone that we hire that's not familiar with our, community or the county geography wise. The software answers their question. It tells them that, this call is within such and such jurisdiction.
How does it,
That's cool.
how does it escalate? So let's say you have something at Flying J.
Sure.
And it's like, oh, we need, like the incident that happened at the hospital. We need a lot of people. We need everybody. And how are those escalation decisions made?
Yes. So police, fire, EMS, we all use what is called, and it's a nationwide, response protocol, and it's incident command system. And so when that happens, like this critical event that occurred at the hospital, the LeGrand Police Department, based upon that type of a call for service, was the jurisdictional authority there. Then what we have is that no longer becomes dispatch process in terms of decision making. They dispatched the first units, and then after that, Lieutenant Hayes was there. He's my second in command, and he was there within just a few moments because he doesn't live too far away. And as soon as he got there, he identified that he was in command, and then that incident commander then requests all of the resources that they need, you know, and whether it's from the same jurisdiction or through, you know, mutual aid agreements and, you know, other jurisdictional assistance.
So in that particular case, is he calling back to the 911 dispatch center and saying,
initially,
hey, get everybody on the horn here?
Right. Yeah. Initially. So he, you know, again, regardless of whatever the emergency is, they will say, hey, would you, you know, request some units from the sheriff's office? Will you request, you know, some troopers respond? But then once we have a field command post set up, oftentimes those calls are made directly from.
Got it.
Because what we want to do is at some juncture, and the earlier the better. And this happens with fire a lot. So dispatch will get the initial call. They will dispatch the jurisdictional fire agency, and we have actually what's called box alarms. So depending upon where it's at and the type of call for service, again, within our software, it identifies, because there are some calls where it's going to be an automatic mutual aid response. Okay. So like a fire at one of the mills,
right?
You know, because it's beyond the scope of ability for, but then once you have the units on scene, they set up command. And then what we want to do is have everything run through command, that field command post, rather than, because we want to alleviate dispatch from all of that burden, because they have the same stuff that keeps coming in. And if we overburden them, then it's predictable we're going to end up with a failure point.
Right.
And so we've figured this out over time.
Cool.
And so, yeah, there are lots of processes that, you know, people just aren't aware of, but it all works, you know, so that things function in a well orchestrated manner, so that we can get the job done.
Super fascinating. Yeah. One more question, then we got to quit. When you set up a command post, do you have a trailer that you pull in? Do you have a little portable office on wheels that can become a command post, or what?
Yeah. Yes. And all of those things.
Okay.
And it just depends on the circumstance. Yeah. You know, fire, you know, the fire chiefs, you know, like Chief Cornford, you know, he has a command truck, and he has all of the tools that he would need to set up a field command post there. Sometimes they do it just by the side of one of the engines. You know, from the law side of things, both Lieutenant Hayes and I's vehicles are set up so that the back of them open up, and we have a desk that we'll pull out. I have a radio and all of the tools that we would need in order to have a field command post there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, hang around. You'll learn some stuff.
Interesting.
But we do have, so Union County Emergency Services has a couple of trailers, actually. But there's one that it's about a 24-foot trailer. It's separated into, it's basically an office on wheels, as you described. But so it's separated in two compartments. There's multiple radios, you know, hotspot, internet connectivity, printers, heaters, air conditioning. So if we needed prolonged, and we've used that specific trailer a number of times in crisis events involving the Northeast Oregon Regional SWAT team, where we know that it's like the event, there's going to be a fair amount of dwell time. But, you know, it's important when you have these critical events, you want your command post or command to be close enough in proximity to be able to effectively manage and lead the operation, but not so close that it creates, you know, additional danger for them and the first responders. So during that hospital event, we had a field command post set up in the parking lot of what used to be the pediatric clinic. I think now it's their rehabilitation. I don't know what the actual name is, but so we had both Lieutenant Hayes and I's vehicles parked next to each other, and it was hot, and I don't have much shade on top of my head. So we had some canopies set up. And so it's not really, it's just a matter of, you know, in a, you know, expedient manner, getting the tools set up so that we can effectively, you know, coordinate the event to a successful outcome. So Yeah.
That's awesome. And the communication part of it is so, I like gear, clearly. I like putting systems together, and it's cool when those systems work in a manner where you've designed them and stuff,
I know we're running short on time, but I'll just share with you that you guys are aware that we just recently did a critical incident.
I was going to ask you how that went.
Yeah, it went fantastic. But see, that's why we do. I would call those low frequency, high risk events.
Right.
Basically, it just means they don't happen very frequently. Some of these things, I hope they never happen.
Right.
But what we have to do, we have to train and prepare for those so that in the unlikely event that those things happen, it won't be the first time we've had an experience with testing the equipment, testing our communication protocols, our response protocols. And that's largely, I think if you talk to anyone, the critical incident that occurred at the hospital, the outcome was a success.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that has to do with the pre-planning and the training, the relationship building that we do before those kinds of things happen. And what we exercise and build in terms of protocols, our tactics, those are durable and transferable, you know, because what we exercised at the regional medical clinic here, 2 months ago, whether we had an event of that scale at the regional medical clinic or downtown at one of our schools, those same things that we exercise there would come into play. And so it's super important for us to validate those and find out where maybe we need to make changes or to work on.
No, and we understand the value, you know, that we do the Shrine football game. It's our biggest game. And this year, for the very first time, a week ahead of time, out in the parking lot, we have a little trailer that we did, and we plugged in all the cameras and did all the connection stuff. And, you know, we still had problems on the day of the game, but at least we were going into it with some confidence that things work, you know, and that's not near as high stake as an incident that you guys face.
So, exactly right.
Yeah. Well, Gary, thank you.
One more question before you go.
Yeah,
what is that new on your uniform?
No, these.
What does that mean?
So every stripe designates 5 years of service, and I know you're laughing. Stop it!
I'd start cutting those off. How come I've never noticed that before?
Well, last time I was here, I think I was in short sleeves.
You were.
So our short sleeve uniform shirts.
Each one of those is 5 years. So that's 30 years.
5 years. So in the military, oftentimes, I think, and for our veterans out there, so that things don't blow up, there's branches of the service that a hash mark is 3 years, but it's pretty regular in law enforcement, you know, especially in the state of Oregon anyway. And we have common uniform, you know, we have like protocol in Oregon on what different uniform designators mean or rank insignia. 5 years for a hash mark.
He's got 6 hash marks.
That's cool.
That's a lot of hash marks.
That's a lot.
What about these right here?
2 stars. So,
2 stars.
Yeah, 2 stars in the state of Oregon identify a chief of police.
Okay.
1 star would be a deputy chief. I mean, obviously, we don't have a deputy chief, but you know, there are some agencies that have deputy chiefs. But so if you see a chief of police in the state of Oregon, their rank designator is 2 stars.
2 stars.
Yep.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. Yep.
Good stuff. And recently, again, I mean, we could talk for a long time.
Yeah.
But you recently promoted some guys. We shared that post on our stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Both Ryan Herbal and Scott Norton were promoted to the rank of sergeant.
Okay.
3 chevrons up here.
Yeah, I knew that.
It's quite frankly, and for those that are familiar and maybe have served previously, a patrol sergeant may be the best job in the police department.
Really?
Yeah, you know, they're in a leadership position. They're critically important. The work they do, the decisions they make, critically important for the success of the organization. But so they have that sense of responsibility that oftentimes people strive towards.
Yeah.
They're a formalized leader, but they're also out there working on the front line. You know, they're responding to the calls, they're working, and that what many of us, and I love this, I always did, being a trainer, you know, and sharing information, coaching or mentoring people. And so that's part of their job day in and day out. And so it's a great game.
That's funny because my grandfather said the same thing about the military. The best thing, like, was his time. I mean, eventually he was a master gunnery sergeant,
right.
But his time as like a sergeant,
Yeah.
like when he first became a sergeant, was the best time in the military for him.
And both of those men, incredible. I don't know if you know both of them.
I do. Well,
Sergeant Norton, Sergeant Herbal, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
And it all starts with foundational values. You guys have heard me say that before.
100%.
Yeah, it's funny because Kyle Whitty is my son, and so when I go out to their place, and Herbal's just live just down the road from them, and I think there's 5 cop families.
Yeah.
OHP. I mean, it's like, if you're going to break in, do not break in out at Cove. Yeah, it's like they have no police force, but they got their own thing going there. Yeah. So anyhow,
thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, you bet. Well, get us
out of here.
Get it to us. Yeah, give it to us.
On this day, October 3rd, 1949, American author Edgar Allan Poe is found delirious in a gutter in Baltimore. It's the last time he was ever seen in public before he died. Like,
really?
Yeah, he died mysteriously. So I read a book about him one time. It's interesting. 1863, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln designated the last Thursday in November as what?
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. 1863. It was designated a holiday. 1922, the very first photo sent over telephone lines by fax in Washington, D.C.
What year again?
1922.
Wow.
Yeah, they sent a fax photo in Washington, D.C. 1952, the first recording on magnetic tape happened in Los Angeles, California. 1952. So how long ago was that? 48, 58, 68, 71 years ago. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Now, 2 things happened in 1955. This is probably your guys' childhood. 2 shows premiered in
Neither one. I was born in 61, but go ahead. 55. Okay. All right. Yeah.
2 shows premiered in 1955. Captain Kangaroo premiered on CBS Good Morning, and the Mickey Mouse Club premiered on the same day.
Wow.
In 1955.
55.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem that long ago. 1995, former NFL running back, broadcaster, and actor O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of the murder of Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman. The crazy thing is exactly 13 years later to the day in 2008, he's found guilty of burglary and armed robbery when he locked those people in the hotel room in Las Vegas that supposedly stole his Heisman. And exactly 13 years later to the day. Yeah. And then 2018, the first exomoon, a moon outside of the solar system, is discovered nearly 8,000 years away by astronomers at Columbia University. Yeah. Number 1 movie in the country on this day, or no, let's go number 1 song in the country on this day in 1983. Total Eclipse of the Heart, Bonnie Taylor. That picture looks like it's from 1983. And then quote of the day: stop acting as if life is a rehearsal. Live this day as if it were your last. The past is over and gone, and the future is not guaranteed. Wayne Dyer. One more time. Stop acting as if life is a rehearsal. Live this day as if it was your last. The past is over and gone. The future is not guaranteed. Boom.
Good stuff.
Gee, Bell, thank you for being on today.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys. By the way, that's a great song.
Yeah.
It is.
Total Eclipse of the Heart.
I mean, everybody knows it. Even people might, you hear that song and you get a little head bob going.
I couldn't have told you who sang it though.
Bonnie Taylor.
So Thursday, right here, we're going to have the crew that is helping overhaul the playground equipment at Riverside Park. Yeah. They were scheduled a couple of weeks ago, and I was ill on that particular day and had to cancel, but they will be here with us. Jeff Cruz, Stu Spence, Sharon Langdon will be here with us. They're that are putting that together. So come, be an opportunity for you to ask questions about that project. Super cool project. So thanks so much.
See you on Thursday.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to you soon.